Hey guys, in this video I'd like to go over my Cleave character. I got to level 100 in the hardcore Harbinger League. Um, Probably one of the most solid characters I think I've ever made. Relative to other melee characters right now, I think this is probably pretty top tier, super well rounded, can do bosses, can do maps really well, and it's super tanky, so I'll show you a little gameplay edge, and then go over all the skills and stuff. So AoE's pretty good relative to most AoE skills. A lot of that is because of the Cleave Jewel and Ink AoE. This isn't even like super stacked on AoE, just have pretty much just barely over the bare minimum. I have the Cleave Radius enchant, but you definitely don't need that. Damage is really nice, very tanky, has good block, spell block, that kind of stuff, and unlike a lot of other characters right now, for especially melee, single target's actually very good, and this character doesn't take that much to get started, so, I mean, that's just some mobs and the boss. So, I'll go over the links first, gems. So, Cleave. It has plus radius, so at the earliest stages you're not going to have very much AoE. It's probably better to level as Sunder and then switch to Cleave once you're probably in the maps. So just level with like a standard Sundered character. You can level as Cleave, I did it, but Sunder would be smoother for sure. I recommend leveling up like 6 Cleave Jewels because level 21 Cleave does give +1 radius. And another thing about Cleave, why it does as much damage as it does, is quality gives it attack speed, which is good, but it also has a very high effectiveness of damage. And the way this works with dual wielding is it's basically, I don't know, I guess I'd call it like true dual wield or whatever, because it's not like stat sticking, you're actually swinging with both weapons, and both weapons are doing damage. So when you use Cleave, you should always be dual wielding because of how it works. When dual wielding, it deals 60% damage from each weapon combined, which obviously is going to be more than 166% of your base damage if both your weapons were of equivalent DPS power or whatever. Links, damage on full life. This does work with Blood Rage as long as you have some amount of regen, which we'll have plenty of, combined with Leech. Ink AoE. Can't really get away from this, you're going to need the AoE. Unless you're doing like bosses, maybe Guardians or Shaper or something, you can do Conk effect and really juices up your DPS. I never bothered on this character, but definitely could do it. Added Fire. You could use Ruthless here, it does show that it's more damage, but the reason I don't use Ruthless, and you could use that at the lower stages for sure, is Reflect. So with Ruthless, because the way it works with Multi-Strike, one of our other gems is when you Multi-Strike, it will proc Ruthless on all those swings, which kind of super fucks you on Reflect. Regardless, either way, Ruthless makes you do too much burst damage, which can kill you on Reflect. Melee Fizz, and Multi-Strike. So that's Cleave stuff. You can use some other gems, but basically this is the recommended setup for general map clearing. You can go Ruthless if you were Volpack, and I'll go over that later. I use Volgrace, you don't have to. You can use a Lightning Trap or something if you want a more single target or you're kind of lacking on that. Volgrace, Ink Duration, and then Enduring Cry could be Lightning Trap stuff if you wanted it. Power Charge on crit, Blood Magic, faster attacks on Whirling. We don't need Fortify because of the Overwhelming Odds Jewel. The Cleave Jewel gives us Fortify whenever we're hitting, which is really nice for bosses. We don't have to have Whirling or whatever to proc our Fortify. It's really nice. So basically, the Cleave Jewel gives us a free Power Charge on crit, which is very nice for mapping. Pretty much always have Power Charges. Blood Rage, Ice Golem, and Maim. I honestly don't even know if this works with Ice Golem if he does physical damage, but I had it linked in there. Regardless, it could just be a totem or something if you wanted it for single target. Got some damage taken with Enfeeble, pretty standard defense thing here. Hatred, Arctic Armor. I don't recommend going triple aura with Enlighten because the damage from like Herald of Ash is very little. Better just to have like Blood Rage or something, which, you know, we're using Comb's Roots, of course, so we're pretty limited. Belt of the Deceiver, Comb's Roots, pretty standard stuff. I used a Celestial Justicar Astral Plate, mostly because I didn't have the money when I first started making this character to just go straight 6-link belly, which is better. Puts you at, I actually do have one somewhere, over 8k life at this point. I don't have max like life rolls everywhere, but Flat Fizz on rings, life, that kind of stuff, resists. Always Flat Fizz on these characters. Flat Fizz on neck with multi, the two most important. You don't really need the crit chance, you can get resist or something, but I take the crit. So Flat Fizz, life, multi, most important stats here. Try to get int, because you're going to need int on this character. Gloves, just life, attack speed, you can get accuracy here or something. I have very little accuracy, I definitely could have used more. This ring's like trash. Helmet, you don't really need the Cleave enchant, but if you have the money, buy one and then roll the helmet yourself, not too bad. Flask, Mind's Roar, Taste of Hate, Series Promise, and Diamond Flask. Probably the lowest priority one here is Ad Series Promise. Taste is pretty pricey though, so probably the last flask you'll end up using. Tree, Duelist, go through this way, grabbing pretty much standard. You'd level with Sunder more than likely, so you're going to go the same way regardless. Probably go axes, leveling up. Getting the crit stuff here, getting swords. This sword stuff here is pretty crappy. I wouldn't bother. Life Wheel, getting a bunch of life. Over here, Fatal Blades and Twin Terrors. Flask stuff. Pretty standard. Looks pretty similar to a Sunder character, just we have a lot of crit stuff now instead in the Heartseeker. I wanted to respec on this character and get Volpact so I could scale up my damage even more, because this character at his DPS right now, if I had any more damage, I would hurt myself too much on Reflect, and the best solution to that would be Volpact, which kind of hard to show you. I would just respec all of this out. Up to this point, I'd keep this node. Move all these nodes over here, this way. We get our crit from the Assassin, or Shadow stuff, and we'd move over here and get Volpact. You end up with like 1% less damage, and you actually have more life doing it this way. It'd probably be like 8,300 with a belly. So if you wanted to, if you had big boy gear, that is definitely an option. I just never got to that point. It became pretty difficult to find swords on this character, so the kinds of swords you would start with is a Skava. It'll get you to red maps. It's pretty, you'll slice through stuff as long as you have a remotely decent offhand, not like this level of gear, but you know, like 270, 280 Fizz DPS, maybe some crit. Rare sword would be plenty good. Swords like this are really good because they have multi. If you can get a nice sword with multi, it's going to scale up your damage more than anything else. Multi is pretty much the most valuable mod, other than like, you know, like a Tyrannical or something, a very high Fizz percentage, but don't underestimate the DPS gain of crit multi on this character, even though our crit chance is 41% on main hand and 37% on offhand, not including Diamond Flask or power charges. Multi will scale up your damage the most. That's why I try to get multi where we can on the tree and on gear. So that, I think, is about it. And I guess Ascendancy stuff doesn't really matter what order you get, gratuitous or outmatch, and then spell block stuff last. One thing I would like to say also about why we're taking Gladiator over other Ascendancies is not only the bleed explosions, the raw defense stuff you get, 10% reduced physical damage taken, and then all the block stuff and these little nodes add block. Makes your character just, I feel like it's retardedly tanky like this. I never ever came close to dying on this character once, other than Reflect, mostly experimenting on Reflect or hitting like 2 or 3 Reflect mobs at the same time, but this character never got chunked by anything. I didn't do Guardians on this character, I mostly just wanted to level it to 100, but it becomes really, really dumb tankiness. So that's about it. If you wanted to try something a lot stronger scaled than Sunder, I think Cleave is probably a good choice. There aren't very many melee skills, in my opinion, right now that feel very powerful, but Cleave is definitely one of those. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys, I don't know when, sometime.